Greetings, cultivators worldwide. Jordan River here, back with more Growcast, fully saturated. Today we have Michael Box back on the line. He's back. Code Growcast is active again at sustainablevillage.com for 10% off your Blu Mats. You know it, you love it. It's time for more irrigation talk, but we get into so much more today. Rainwater and water conservation, administering water in all of the different ways and methods. You're going to love this episode on irrigation, but before that, shout out to AC Infinity. That's right. They make the best grow gear on the market. ACinfinity.com, code GROWCAST15 saves you 10%. That is the maximum discount. We've had the code forever. We've been partners with AC Infinity for years. And why? It's because they make the best tents you can get your hands on. They make the best inline fans, the best oscillating fans. They make really, really great quality accessories like scissors, pots, ratchet hangers, and things like that. And now they also have lights. They've got the ion board and now the ion frame bar style. Really, really great stuff at AC Infinity. Get the whole grow kit you've been after. You know, you can get a 3x3 kit, a 5x5 kit. You know you want another one. Just go ahead and pop over there. Use code GROWCAST15 always at checkout for the max discount. And thank you for supporting us and AC Infinity. We love them so much. They make our favorite grow gear out there. I'm looking at 2 AC Infinity tents in my biodome, and you won't regret grabbing one. Use code GROWCAST15 at acinfinity.com. Thank you to AC Infinity. All right, let's get into it with Michael Box. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Hello, podcast listeners. You are now listening to Growcast. I'm your host, Jordan River, and I want to thank you for tuning in again today. Before we get started, as always, I urge you to share this show. Send this episode off to a friend. Turn someone on to growing. It's how you can help us the most, and make sure you're following us on Spotify or YouTube, whatever you like. Give us a follow, and stay tuned to learn more about cannabis cultivation. Today, we have a friend of the show on. That's right. People have been asking about this Blu Mat code, and it's back on, everybody. You know what that means. Michael Box is back on the show. Code Growcast is back active. We're going to do an episode on irrigation and much more. What's up, Michael? How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Jordan. I'm doing good. Good to be back.
Good to be back, my friend. Your last episode was a hit. Go and check out all of Michael's episodes. Wonderful episodes on watering technique and irrigation and all sorts of stuff. But that last episode on moisture retention curve was a banger, man. People like that data. You're always testing. You're always in the lab. Yeah. My audience loved that. So thank you for that. And thank you for coming back on today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I mean, cliche, but like life is a, continuous process of learning, and that's what kind of floats my boat. And so we're always looking at new things here at Sustainable Village, but just me personally, I always want to kind of be pushing the envelope and learning new things, keeping my world interesting, I guess.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, that the moisture retention curve is a really interesting, piece of data to look at, and a good concept for people to understand. So
we're
that
always
was fun talking about that. Yeah, I do encourage people to go back and check that one out a little bit.
Good stuff, man. Really good stuff. Now that you're back on the show, we know what this means as well. Code GROWCAST active for 10% off for the month of September at sustainablevillage.com. Grab your Blu Mat automated watering systems. You guys know that I love this system, and Michael is kind enough to activate this code just for us every so often. And I'm loving it, man. We spoke at an event recently, but what have you been up to in the meantime since the last time you were on the show? What have you been doing, and what's new on the horizon for Sustainable Village?
Yeah, so, been a little bit since we were on here. I was just looking through my notes, and I think it was like the end of March that we did a show together last. And I'm also remembering we ran into each other since then.
Yes.
In real life in Oklahoma.
Funny how that works.
At the, at a CannaCon, the OKC CannaCon. But yeah, since then, we've gone through springtime, which is always our traditional busy season. And it was another busy season. It's been an interesting year. I'll say that, as far as what we're doing as a company, like what our kind of like business flow is like, but also just the irrigation world in general this year has been a really strange one. It's been a wet year across the country.
Right.
Unless you're in a few places, some places it was very, very dry. most places it was really wet. Particularly kind of like the Northeast, but all like the mountains of Colorado where we are, it was very wet. We work with a lot of farmers in this area on some of our bigger ag projects, and I'm in touch with people all over the country they're doing agricultural projects, and as well as the manufacturers of various irrigation components all over the U.S. and globally too. But particularly in the U.S. this year, it was kind of a wet year, which interestingly enough means sales kind of come down sometimes for irrigation systems.
Well, you tell me the rain's doing your job?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is, great for most people. I definitely had a few clients, a few like new weed projects up in Vermont this year.
Uh-huh.
Like they never ended up buying an irrigation system. We had a design in place. They were ready to go. And then it rained and rained and rained and rained. And then their town flooded and then it rained some more. And so we had that sort of thing happening. We just sold the system to a project up in Vermont today. I think Izzy might have finished that up. And it got scaled back because this guy, he put in, I don't know, it was several hundred, like 100-gallon pots out on a field. And the creek came up and ate away a third of his field and took the pots away with it and everything. Yeah.
That is wild.
And they didn't need irrigation until now. Here they are in their last 6 to 8 weeks of growing, and they needed it.
So they're plugging in some Blu Mats.
Yeah.
Well, I think about those other automated watering systems, and it's got to be a challenge when it is naturally wet, right? When it's raining a lot, when there's a lot of moisture and things of this nature. If you're just running drips on a timer or something like that, or emitters on a timer, they don't know what's going on in the world around them. So I assume that these environmental changes are going to have to impact the way that you irrigate. The Blu Mats, of course, like detecting the pressure in the soil, that's an amazing help. But probably just in general, it's going to change the way that you irrigate.
Well, you're right. You're right about that. Just the Blu Mats, just if people are just jumping in or whatever, the crux of this, a lot of the systems we build, I use a Blu Mat sensor, the Blu Mat carrot we call them sometimes, and they're basically a ceramic cone with a plastic top filled with water. There's a silicon tube that runs through the top that gets pinched on and off based on the soil moisture level. So effectively, it acts as a variable flow, variable speed valve, a water valve that opens and closes based on the soil moisture content in the container that it's in. So yeah, again, if the way it works is when the soil dries out, the valve opens, it waters it, brings it up to a set point and turns off. So if you're in a situation where you're getting a lot of rain, it's not going to turn on. And yeah, so that is a big difference than a more of a traditional drip system on a timer. Now, having said that, there are controllers that can replicate some of the functionality of what the Blu Mat's doing.
Sure.
And I've actually been looking at those a little bit lately. Some of the bigger projects we tend to move away from actually using the Blu Mat product once we get over a certain size.
That makes sense.
Say over half an acre to an acre of planted stuff. If it's in containers, we can go bigger. We can go really big if it's in containers. I don't really have an upper limit, but everything's got a scale and everything's got an appropriate technology to fit that scale. And sometimes when we're dealing with many acres and thousands of plants, sometimes we move past the Blu Mats themselves and go into a more just highly sophisticated drip irrigation system.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say highly sophisticated, I don't mean overly complicated. In fact, the way we like to design our systems is as simple as possible because, I've worked on farms and some people that are listening might also, and, having stuff that just works well, it's bomber, it doesn't break easy. It's easy to turn on. It's easy to turn off. Doesn't have a lot of, technology behind it that needs updating or power supplies and things like that can be really, really is often usually preferred. So The trick there is how do you take those qualities on a large scale irrigation project, but give it the kind of sensitivity and responsiveness that we're getting with Blu Mat systems and containers. And I've really identified a few really nice controllers from this company. There's an Israeli company that's been operating out of the US for a while now that has got some really great ones where we can input a whole bunch of different solenoid valves. The solenoid valves can be remotely controlled. We can connect it to weather stations. We can put in analog inputs like aerometers, so we can be collecting moisture data. We can set trigger points based on that data.
Real-time moisture data?
Sure. Yeah.
That's right up your alley. This is the type of stuff you install if somebody comes to you with a design request for a very large outdoor
That's
type
exactly
grow.
Right.
Ah, okay. Wow.
Yeah, and a lot of the bigger, like I said, more kind of ag quality projects that's really like the kind of holy grail of irrigation, is to have irrigation systems that open and turn on when the soil drops below a certain set point, and then turn off when they reach a certain moisture level.
Right.
And kind of repeat that process, right? And a lot of the traditional drip world has been trying to do that for a long time, but has not really got there technology-wise. Interestingly enough, we've been able to do that with Blu Mats in containers, particularly, raised beds, pots, that sort of thing. We've been able to really accurately do that for quite a while, and we can do it really well now. But that technology piece where growers are able to get all those data points and then have like automated irrigation events based on those data points, it's new. It's really pretty new. There's different tech out there that's like trying to do it, and part of our job is to kind of like analyze a lot of these new companies and their products, test them out. We'll demo them. Maybe we'll get set up as a dealer. Maybe we won't, and run them through their paces and see if they really do work. And so we're identifying different products that can do that
at all scales.
Yeah, at all scales. That's correct. Yep.
So when you think about this, you talk about opening the irrigation and closing the irrigation at the optimal times.
Mm-hmm.
And it strikes me, what are the main goals of automated irrigation? Well, one, obviously eliminating labor. You could argue that's the biggest thing, right? When you automate, is you eliminate repeated need for labor. Two, optimizing the soil moisture. Hand watering takes a lifetime to master. And if you can just have sensors doing it for you, you can, a lot of the times, do a better job by relying on the sensors and relying on the math. And then three, I would probably say another important one is water conservation, right? Using less water overall. That's a huge deal at a large scale, but I think it's just a good life practice, no matter how small your garden is to conserve the precious resource that is fresh, clean water. You know what I mean?
Yeah, water. It's all really about water conservation from an environmental point of view, I guess. But as a resource conservation, kind of point of view too. Like, water's expensive and it's a resource that needs to be conserved. The other things you brought up, as far as like labor savings, yes, that's like a massive one. The return on investment is incredibly quick on an automated irrigation system. When you start running the numbers, if any kind of commercial operator, if they're paying somebody to, hand water their plants, I mean, I can guarantee any of them that, we can design a system with a price point that is going to pay for itself.
The hand waterer isn't here in the room. You don't have to lower your voice. I like how you got quiet there. We can guarantee that.
Yeah.
It does make sense. You'd make that money back rather quickly on an automated watering system at scale. But even the home growers, man, primarily my audience, home growers. Yeah. I just think it frees you up. It frees you up, man.
It takes it to the next point. Yeah. It frees you up. It lets you do other things. And it takes you to the next point, which is the plants tend to like it better anyways. I mean, I know that there's a lot of advantages to hand watering in the sense that you're spending time with the plants and getting to, observe them. I will say with a small grow with a Blu Mat system, they are going to be able to water your plants better than the hand waterer. can. And I know that's maybe sounds a little arrogant or something, but you know, time and time again, that's proven to me. I feel like.
Well, I mean, listen, on average, I realized I was overwatering myself when I got that moisture meter, right? And here's the other thing that I'll say to the people that say, oh, I love hand watering my plants. I still hand water all the time with Blu Mat. That's how I have to add in my teas and things like that. It just doesn't rely on that for the water delivery. So I end up feeding a lot less and needing to mix things a lot less. And then I still will water in things like compost teas and living things that I don't really want sitting in a res. Blu Mat just detects that it's a little wet. It stops running its thing until it dries out enough, and then it continues. So for me, it's ideal for the home grower setup. And I hand water in all the time, man. So I get microbes.
So yeah, water conservation. The third thing you brought up, major factor in the irrigation world. It's a big piece of our company ethos is to provide systems that promote water conservation, whether it's moving from flood irrigation to overhead, or from overhead to drip, or from drip to, a kind of plant responsive system like a Blu Mat system. So we're always looking to increase water conservation and water efficiency in any irrigation system we do.
So I want to go more in depth into like water conservation tips, but just to start from the automated watering perspective, overwatering is going to be a less efficient use of the water, even if you're not watering to runoff, because the plant isn't going to be able to, it's not going to be able to transpire as efficiently. It's not going to be able to drink up that water as easily now that it's overwatered. It's really interesting you say like efficient use of water. It's not just how much you're wasting, it's getting that air to water ratio right, that 50-50 air to water ratio that plants love so much to have maximum efficiency. Is that why you're saying that things like Blu Mat are good for water conservation? Because it's just the right balance. You're not dumping too much or too little.
Yeah, we're not using water that we don't need to use. We're using just enough. And we're not watering to runoff, which is a kind of a major, again, environmental impact for a lot of traditional drip systems where, people are watering to a certain amount of runoff and then they have to treat that runoff, and that's a whole process. It's a big, kind of selling point for the commercial systems that we see where, we're not watering to runoff.
Yes.
Every time they irrigate. Because, most places these days, when you get your license, if you have a license grow, there's going to be some requirements to, capture all that runoff water and, clean it or dispose of it in a particular way.
Yeah, even the home grower. It's like, where do you put that stuff?
Expensive.
Yeah, I mean, if you have other plants that can maybe gobble that up, or you have somewhere in your yard where you can, I mean, if you're near any waterways and you're just dumping that in the same spot and then it rains and it pushes that salt fertilizer that you might be using into the, people don't like that. That's one of the reasons that home growers try to do a living soil system, because they say, oh, I don't have to worry about that runoff. I think it's just about gardening responsibly, but I will say a lot of new growers get put off by this idea that this runoff probably shouldn't go into down the drain or into waterways,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why they put all those regulations in place too, is because those kind of hyper concentrated levels of nitrogen in particular affect watersheds negatively.
Good call. What other big water conservation tips do you? I have a couple that are in my mind, but I'd like to give you a chance to say, I know you see a lot of setups out there, especially in like the home grower.
Well, I love stuff that uses rainwater catchment, That's more of like on a backyard home grower scale kind of thing. Generally, there's other bigger projects that, capture it in ponds and things like that too. But in Colorado, you're basically allowed to catch the water that comes off of your roof. Now, previously, you weren't allowed to collect any rainwater in Colorado. All the water in Colorado is owned at any given point.
What, even the stuff falling from the sky?
Yeah, basically. I mean, yeah, as soon as it hits the ground, it is. But so they've changed those rules a little bit here in Colorado over the last 10 years. And now you're able to do some rainwater collection. It is based on the amount of roof that you have. So you can only you have to look at the square footage of your roof.
What?
How much water could what's the annual rainfall in your area, like per foot? And then you take that number and then times the amount of square feet of roof that you have. And that's like the volume that you're allowed to store on your property at any given time.
Does every state have these type of rainwater collection regulations? I haven't heard that before. Interesting nonetheless, though.
No, they don't. I mean, definitely not like East Coast states or anything like that where there's just plenty of water. But again, So Colorado's a state where there's no rivers that flow into Colorado. They just flow out of it. So all of our water is snowmelt for the most part.
Can't be collecting that precious rain.
Yeah, well, somebody owns it, really, via water rights and water shares somewhere downstream. And Colorado water law is like an old thing and has like its own history, and it's complicated and crazy. But
I remember that.
Anyways, that's kind of besides the point. You can catch rainwater here, and you can do it in lots of other places too. And so the trick is to capture rainwater, have enough rainwater storage, available to collect that water when it does rain, because it might not rain for a long time, but then it might, rain a couple inches in an hour or a couple hours, and it'll fill up your 55-gallon drum. So you have to have that storage ability on site, and then have a way to move the water from those tanks into your gardens. And preferably we're doing that through some sort of gravity process, right? Mm-hmm. We could put a pump in there and pump water out into a drip system or something like that, and that's done. But, to kind of complete that like elegant cycle of just catching water, storing it, and then as the ground dries out after the rain, reapplying it, that is that's the real trick, I think.
That's really cool.
Yeah. We got some cool kind of kits we've been putting together that sort of will plug into your rainwater barrel, like your rain barrel, or if you want to get a rain barrel, you got those too. But basically, you just come off of the bulkhead from your rain barrel into some 8mm tubing, and then we can run that all over the garden. And what we've actually been doing is connecting the Blu Mat classics to that 8mm tubing, so that we have this sort of slow release of water where we want it, and it's all gravity fed. And that's kind of a cool, kind of newer thing that we've been messing around with here, as far as kind of backyard, like home style, rainwater oriented systems.
I would love to get on a rainwater system or get my family on them out in Hawaii. That would be so cool. Rainwater has a lot of properties to it, right? That other sources of water don't. Can you talk about that for a second?
I've heard that. Yeah, like high dissolved oxygen rates. I don't know a lot about that particularly.
No, you nailed it. It's full of oxygen. It's full of atmospheric nitrogen. And then there was even a study. I don't know if you saw this, but there was a study that said, I have it right here. A study found that rain-borne bacteria falls from the sky and occupies the phyllosphere on plants. This is a study published in 2021 that says that there was a species of bacteria that was found to be in rainwater and colonize plants. Really crazy. I think there's something special about that rainwater.
Yeah.
That's what I think. One of the reasons why outdoor plants
I think it has an
are
alive
so vigorous.
Quality.
Yeah, it does. It sure does,
I agree. Yeah. I've always preferred outdoor grown cannabis just because it, it has that opportunity to interact with the wind and the rain and the sun, and, maybe takes on some of those kind of wild qualities, even though it might not be have the best bag appeal.
Anyone who's done both outdoor and indoor has at least you can say this for sure. And I support grows of all types, but at least you can say this for sure. There's something about that outdoor, if grown properly, that outdoor vigor. I don't know what it is about the native microbes or the sun and the rain and the wind or all of the above, most likely.
I just think it's the sun. I think, man, I see that out in Colorado. These plants get outdoors, and once we get some good hot days, they just rip. And I think it's that hot Colorado sun.
Nice. Yeah, the sun too, man. Good call. That spectrum, wonderful single focal point in the sky that the plants can just perfectly interact with. And especially when they grow together, they seem to be very vigorous outdoors together in the weather. You know what I mean?
Oh, they do compete with each other. I think they definitely do that. I think if you put two plants next to each other, even if they have enough space, they'll if you plant a short one next to a tall one, that short one will catch up to the tall one.
Something about it. And someone told me a long time ago.
No, I think that's like it's a competition thing.
Totally. And someone told me a long time ago, talking about vegetables, they said plants grow better together. They just do. So if you have like plants, even if they're in separate pots, like you said, scoot them together. They like to be together. And I always remembered that. Good stuff though. Amazing. So rainwater. I didn't even think you were going to bring up rainwater, man. That is a killer suggestion.
Yeah, no, I think rainwater is a great one. Again, we have a line of kind of products that are oriented towards that. I got to go. This is just kind of more on a personal note. I got to go to just like farm dinner a month or two ago at this place called Elk Run Farm. They're like a really cool permaculture farm here in Boulder County, and they do a lot of kind of community-oriented events. And there was a fellow there named Brad Lancaster. He was kind of the guest, and he's a more old school. As far as permaculturalist goes, pretty kind of famous in that world. And a lot of his work was done with rainwater catchment, rainwater diversion down in the Southwest in Arizona. And they had brought him up to Boulder County here to kind of do some like consulting and kind of policy advising with the city of Boulder on how they could change their rainwater catchment and rainwater diversion laws in order to store more water in the landscape and keep less of it from running down drains. And yeah, we got to have really cool night with him talking about some of the projects he's worked with over the years. Man, if anybody is interested in rainwater catchment, check this guy out, Brad Lancaster. He's got some website stuff. He's written a few books, but he's sort of the godfather of that world.
I'm gonna need to speak to this guy, man.
Yeah,
that sounds really cool. It's cool that you're hobnobbing the mayor himself, hobnobbing with the king of rainwater and the Boulder elites. I love it, man. No, I mean, listen, in all seriousness, I think that's really cool. I think that's the type of stuff that these like city officials need to be thinking about. You know what I mean? That really flips my cookie.
Yeah, Boulder is, which is where our company is located, has a long history of being fairly progressive in their kind of environmental policy.
So let's talk more about water conservation. One thing that I see that I know you probably see this a lot too is a lack of mulching, man. I think that's a huge source of water evaporation that a lot of people can change their garden with just applying that mulch layer, making sure there's a sufficient mulch layer. And in the case of outdoors, making sure that you reapply that mulch layer, right? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I feel like there's different ways to go about the mulch thing. Outdoors, sure. Yeah, definitely mulch is a good thing. Indoors, I don't really want to take a stance on that. It can be kind of controversial. It can be like a vector for pathogens and stuff like that too, for, indoor controlled environments. But definitely anything outdoors, mulch is a great product. It helps, with a lot of kind of biological activity and creating ecosystems to support a diversity of organisms. At home, I have some 65-gallon pots, and I have the Blue Soak, the soaker hose that goes along with the Blu Mats in those pots. And what I like to do is actually bury that a little bit. So I'll bury that an inch or two under the top layer of soil when I'm planting for the season.
Nice.
So that, it's releasing the water in that underneath the soil layer, the top of the soil, but it's within like an inch or two of the surface. So it kind of helps protect the Blue Soak for one thing. And I think the kind of back pressure that the soil provides, it helps kind of prolong the longevity of the tape as well.
Oh, no way. So it actually lasts, because I was going to say it doesn't like clog or anything like that under the dirt. It just works great.
No. It's actually the stuff's designed to be buried.
Wow, cool.
We're kind of using it off label in a way when we don't bury it. So yeah, you'll always get longer life out of your Blue Soak if you bury it or heavily mulch it. That's for sure.
And that's what you like in like a bed scenario, because you only have one carrot, but that Blue Soak tape is able to like wrap around a big ass cot or a bed. Yeah,
exactly. Or just run lengths of it down the beds.
That is exactly what I want. That's what I'm after.
Yeah, we can have one carrot controlling, a 4x8, 4x10, 4x12, maybe up to 4x20 kind of zone.
Oh, whoa.
So
that saves on buying a bunch of carrots.
Yeah.
Another advantage to getting into a larger bed. But I will tell you this, in the mulch, on the mulch side, and I don't know how big they make these, but one company, Rain Science, makes a pot cover. It's like the same material as their mesh. Have you seen these? And it sits in your plant, still has room to go through, but you basically have like a screen. So things like fungus gnat eggs probably won't make it through there. It shades your medium. So stuff like that is really cool for like more sterile.
Yeah, I've seen stuff like that. They're like discs that kind of go on there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like those. That was one thing that I saw that was really neat. So now you don't have to bring in, a bag of wood chips or whatever if you don't want to necessarily bring that into your grow.
Right.
It's just something I thought about. A lot of cool applications out there right now, man.
Oh, yeah, there are.
Do you enjoy listening to Growcast? Well, if so, you'll love Growcast membership. Hundreds of hours of bonus content, personal access to me in our members-only Discord, live streams, giveaways, and so much more. Go to growcastpodcast.com/membership and jump on in. Check out all of the bonus content. You can jump in free for 7 days. Consume all that content, tune into the live streams. I know you're going to love it. We have resources and recipes for the members. We will personally guide you and solve all your garden problems in our members-only Discord. And most importantly, we are a positive community of uplifting growers who really want to just help you succeed in your garden. We're not going to jam our styles down your throat. We're going to help you garden the way you want to garden and succeed and achieve your goals. If you're a positive, like-minded grower, come and join us at the Order of Cultivation. That's our fancy name at Growcast membership. growcastpodcast.com/membership and check out the Growcast TV live streams. Best show in cannabis. I know you'll love it, and I hope to see you there. We do meetups and events and classes all the time, so I hope to see you in membership and in person soon. growcastpodcast.com/membership. Try it free for 7 days. Thank you to all you listeners and all of the members. I appreciate you. Speaking of those bags, though, another one that I like is having a lighter colored pot, like the white mesh fabric bags. A lot of those dark black ones that I have in my backyard, they really heat up in the sun. And I think that it cooks out. Yeah, it cooks out that water quicker. Almost certainly it does.
Well, absolutely. So, I mean, yeah, as far as pots, we want to talk about that for a second. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the Grassroots Fabric Living Soil products.
Oh, those are great. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're usually tan, which takes away that darkness, right? And heat absorption. So there's tan fabric, but the important piece is the living soil liner, they call it. It's basically like a non-permeable membrane that's sewn into the upper 12 inches of the pot or the raised bed. And, from an irrigation perspective, I think it's great. It keeps the soil moisture even all the way up to the edge of the pot. So, fabric pots are great. They're like lightweight. They're relatively cheap. They're easy to set up and move around and whatever. But they do dry out around the edges, and that's a real problem for someone that's focused on soil moisture. So what like I said, what's so great about those living soil liners is they keep that even moisture level right up to the edge of the pot, and that promotes, kind of additional root growth in that area as well. So if you have like 2 or 3 inches of soil all the way on the outside of your pot that is just continually dried out, it's not going to get the same amount of root growth that the consistently moist sections would get.
Yes.
Right. So, that's like a waste of soil. And when we've actually sat around the office here and done the math on this. And, if you take like the average cost of soil, like of like a nice mix, like something from whatever, Build a Soil or Kiss Organics or one of those guys, whatever that stuff is, $15-$20 a bag.
The good shit. Yeah.
Yeah. The good shit. And if you take the cost of that per volume and you look at like, okay, if you have a 65-gallon pot and the outer 3 inches are not being used, and that means you're wasting, 3 inches, like how much of that extra 3 inches of soil cost? You
guys are punching the numbers. You're going, what's the diameter?
Yeah, we did.
You're punching them up.
Yeah,
doing
we totally did.
3 inches off of each side.
Yeah. The crazy thing is you'd be better. So what we found, I've always wanted to tell the guys at Grassroots about this. But yeah, we sat there one night and just kind of nerding out about this stuff. What we found was if you had a 65-gallon pot that was non-living soil, right? Like, not, just had regular standard fabric that was drying out around the edges, versus like a 45-gallon pot with a living soil liner, you're functionally getting about the same amount of available soil. And if you, in the 45-gallon pot with the living soil liner as you are on the 65-gallon pot without the living soil
that
liner.
Much?
So then if you take the cost of that unused soil, that number is higher than like the difference in price between the living soil 45-gallon pot in the 65-gallon pot without that living soil liner.
So you're paying for more soil.
It's overall cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now you can buy less soil for the same amount of volume, and basically that's how it all worked out. It's like, oh, it turns out it's cheaper to go with a smaller pot where you use all the soil, and that pot costs a little bit more than it is to go with a bigger, cheaper pot with more soil in it, but you're not using all that soil. So
yeah,
that's kind of the bottom line math on that. Just what we concluded on one of our like after work bullshit sessions here in the office when we were just sitting around.
And that makes sense because those big pots are often much taller. So you're right. If it's the outer 3 inches, that's all the way down to the bottom. So that's a lot of missing soil, as you put it. And
exactly.
those wrapped pots are great. Even if you don't, like, let's say you already have some going or whatever, even if you don't have the capability to like choose a new pot, another thing you can do is kind of shade or mulch the outside of your pot. Shout out to Mary Beth Sanchez. She was like, I'll just take a bunch of straw and kind of put it around the outside of my pot that protects it from the sun, and it insulates it essentially. So I thought that was a really neat little trick to mulch the outside of your pot. I thought that was neat.
Yep.
Yeah, good stuff, man. I love all those breathable bags. The ones that have the lining, like you said, are amazing. As long as you get that air pruning, that is key. Although I know some great growers who still grow in plastic, to be fair, I'll give them their due. But I like the ones that the roots grow through and do the air pruning. That's important to me.
Yeah. We're seeing a lot of folks these days, scaling back from some of the larger containers. And they're producing, okay, so like we say living soil style production, like what does that really mean, right? Like I bet if we ask 10 people, we get 10 different definitions.
Yes.
And the whole point is there isn't really a official definition. It's not
Correct.
like it's saying it has an organic certification or something, where it has to meet these criteria. Well, this is just like a slogan that goes.
It's a colloquial definition.
But a lot of folks might say, hey, it just means you're using like a heavily amended potting mix soil that has mostly organic ingredients and lots of micronutrients, and the product that you're getting is like super rich and broad terpene spectrums and so on and so forth. Now, a lot of people go on to add that's grown in a large container and that there's biological activity that continually kind of like cycles through and solubilizes nutrients and makes them plant available. And that's the function. It's like basically your soil bed is a living system in itself. But not everybody thinks that way too. And, some people want to just have a pre-mixed soil that they add a lot of microbes to in a smaller container, like a 5 or 10 gallon pot.
Yep.
I'm sure there are plenty of people out there that would jump up and say, growing in a 5 gallon pot is not living soil. But it is possible to produce in that way and get a product that is very similar in that really rich terpene profile, and produce a product that has lots of available micronutrients and things like that.
People scaling back down to that more is what you're saying.
Yeah. So we're kind of seeing that more, and that's like a newer, and we have a lot of new kind of designs to match up with that style. And again, it actually doesn't even have to be just that living soil person. Anybody that's in any kind of smaller container in that like kind of 3 to 10 gallon container. So even if they're growing cocoa, eating cocoa with salts and stuff like that too, this would also work. But we're kind of seeing that as a process. I think this, but we do a lot of design work here at the office, and so
you guys do that for free. A lot of my members have been grateful, man. They said I called up and you guys just gave them a system, said here's the design for free. If you want to grab it, use code Growcast, and yeah, we appreciate that.
You bet, we do. Most of our systems are for free. Occasionally, we do a couple a month. I've got bigger systems that require an engineered CAD drawing and everything. And we'll charge a little bit of money for that, but it's actually really reasonable if you need engineered drawings. But most of our stuff, definitely anything involving Blu Mats, is all free design. And those designs, they come with like a really nice computer designed drawing, that's like has all your parts and pieces labeled and diagrams of how it all fits together, and it's customized to your space. And then it also comes along with like a itemized parts list for everything that goes into that system. And we're able to do a pretty quick turnaround on those kind of projects. So many of these designs, that we do are for all kinds of systems, home grows, big farms, like a lot of commercial cannabis. We used to do just tons and tons of like greenhouses and raised beds. And I say used to because we're in an interesting position in the industry in that we're talking to people from every state in the country pretty much, and kind of hearing what folks are up to and what they're doing. And really over time, like I think I said, I've been sitting in this role here at this company for about 5 years. And that last 5 years has been a real roller coaster in the cannabis world, watching, the preferred styles of growers evolve and adapt, to lots of different things, finding more efficient technologies, some styles that produce better products, or, maybe just market demands for wanting different things in different places for different people. So, we're seeing a lot of that. And one of the things that we've been doing a lot of here lately, when this is just sort of an interesting, kind of commentary on the market, is those grows that are doing, 5 to 10 gallon pots of like, quote unquote, living soil. And again, I think it's great. I think it's a cool way to grow. And what we're doing is putting one Blu Mat in every pot. And we have these drip rings now.
Oh yeah, those little halos. Those are great.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have these and we've been working with this one company to get them manufactured so that they fit seamlessly with just a little plug right onto the end of a Blu Mat. We're not doing with the distribution drippers. We just have these like nice plastic rings. They're really affordable. And we can do like 1 carat and 1 drip ring per container. So we have like a 5-inch one and we have a 10-inch one. So, the 5-inch is really good for like up to a 5-gallon pot. We'll put those 10-inch ones up to a 30-gallon pot and get that kind of functionality there. So the other thing that we've been really working on with that system is the cap dialing. So what we've been doing with the cap dialing is, and I know we covered this a little bit last time as well, is that we have a method for dialing all of our carrots at once, just in one place. We can actually do it before we even get to the grow room. In fact, what we've been doing is cap dialing them here at the warehouse. We built a little setup here where we can just quickly do a lot of them, and then we snap a plastic cap on them. So we're able to like dial in the carrots ahead of time.
So if I order now, am I going to get one of those?
You could. Yeah. We haven't put it on the website yet. And, I'll just throw it out there. I don't think I've talked about this anywhere else yet. I just built the item number in our system.
Oh.
We have a service we're doing. So you can pay to have them dialed ahead of time. And you know what, Jordan, if you want them, I'll dial them up for you myself, free of charge. But we have been doing over the last 6 months. We wanted to make sure this worked really well. So we've picked probably about a dozen different commercial facilities and some smaller ones, and we cap dialed all their carrots. Maybe it was 10, maybe it was 40, maybe it was 600. And we dialed all the carrots here, put the caps on them, shipped them to them. They just plugged them in, didn't do any adjustments. All they did was soak the bottoms, fill them with water, and put them in the soil, turn the pressure on, and boom, they're hitting every pot to pot is hitting the exact target millibar level that we want them to hit.
That is killer.
Now, you combine that with the drip ring, the pre-dialed carrots with the drip ring, and all of a sudden for not very much per container, dollar figure, we have like a moisture sensing valve and water distribution system in every individual pot.
And it's plug and play.
And it's getting to be plug and play. Everything has to get built, the supply line to be laid out and water systems to be hooked up to. But yeah, it's getting very close to like a plug and play, much more so than it was beforehand.
Well, that's the plug part.
So that's like the really easy way to do it, to have it, to like pay to have them pre-dialed ahead of time and sent to you. But the instructions for pre-dialing them are very easy too. And we produced a whole series of videos since we were on here last that kind of demonstrate how to do that online. So on our YouTube channel, if folks go on there, they'll be able to see all those new videos.
Nice. Sustainable Village. Nice. Okay. Sustainable Village YouTube channel. Village. Go subscribe, everybody. Go give them a subscription. Okay. So I love that. And I love that for the style that you just described. That makes a lot of sense, Oh,
yeah. And let me just take this one step further, because this is like, I wanted to kind of give you a little update on this, because I think I touched on the cap dialing last time because we were really just, really just getting the SOP of it down and just starting to send out those test kits. And yeah, it's worked really well. People are getting, they're ordering cases at a time of pre-dialed carrots, and they're showing up at their facility, and they're able to just stick, soak the bottoms, fill them with water, and then be able to stick them in and have them operate and have that consistency from pot to pot to pot without any kind of screwing around. So what's cool is to take that and then couple that with the adjustable pressure reducer, which is another product we touched on, I think, last time. Again, it was pretty new then. We were just starting to send them out. And they are a different pressure reducer. They're not like the Blu Mat brand ones we've previously sent out. They're from a different manufacturer in Germany. We found these are really cool. They adjust. They have like a dial on them where you can adjust the pressure setting, and they'll go anywhere from like 1 to 19 psi, I think, somewhere around there. But it's 1 to 14 is what it is. So we can adjust the pressure on the back end of the system. And what we've found is that if you have every carrot in your facility, they're all putting out, say, 80 millibars, or even a little wetter. Let's say they're putting out 60 millibars, which is pretty wet, but that's like acceptable range for a living soil mix, or even a cocoa mix for sure. Cocoa can go even wetter, as a matter of fact. We learned all that stuff based on the moisture retention curve data we talked about last time. But so say we're sitting at 60 millibars. It's on the wetter side of things. And the back end of the system is at, say, 15 psi, which is sort of the upper limit for Blu Mats. If we turn the valve on that adjustable pressure reducer and drop the back end pressure down to, say, 7 psi, so we're lower the pressure on the back end of the system, what that's going to do is in a very consistent and even way is going to dry out every pot in that room. That kind of drop would probably dry it back to around 90 to 100 millibars.
So you can determine, adjusting the pressure on the back end, how that's going to lower the moisture to a T in the medium. So this is useful like before harvest, for instance, if you wanted to dry them out or you wanted to do an intentional dryback. That's
exactly right. So yeah, either doing it, like at transition, people will do it often. Some people will do it towards the end of the grow season. Anytime you want to, based on your technique.
That is so cool.
You could do full on crop steering with this.
Because that's the problem. You being able to turn it on and off like that would be so useful, because then you don't have to redial ever. And you can just, that makes a lot of sense, man.
Oh, yeah. Once those plastic caps snap on the top of the Blu Mats, these little clear plastic ones that go over the brown dial, they're never meant to be touched again, really.
That's cool.
And again, I think we did talk about some of this stuff last time, but I just, want to put it out there that we then sent these to a number of commercial systems. Some of them we set up ourselves. Some of them we just mailed them and they sent them up. And they have had tremendous results. It's just an awesome way to irrigate right now.
Very cool.
I'd love to design for anybody that's listening right now. If you got something where you're using, even if it's, 10 pots, 20 pots, 100 pots, 1,000 pots, give us a call and we'll put together the system. We'll do the design. You can look at the price. You can talk to us. You can haggle with us if you need to, and we'll figure out exactly how to make it work and get this thing in there for you, because I want to see these, people using these, because the results are tremendous.
That's really cool.
And if you want to do a traditional drip system, we can do that too. That's based off of controller or a timer or something like that, or a manual control.
Nice.
So that's easy too. But,
just remember to bring up code Growcast during the haggling process, and you'll receive 10% off. Tell them you heard it here. And thank you, man, for all you do. SustainableVillage.com. It's the best. Before we wrap it up, I did want to say I used your Blu Mat Classics. That's another one you touched on last episode. The Blu Mat Classics not having the adjustable dial. It's just a carrot that weeps. And I used it with its literally like it shows on the house plant instructional, which is I had to go out of town. You gave me a handful of these Blu Mat Classics. I had them sitting around. I put them in a bowl of water and I plugged them into the few plants that I had sitting in a few 3-gallon pots. And lo and behold, I came back and it was way longer than I usually water. And the bowl had been mostly drained. And the plants were thirsty, but they had survived. Like it literally did exactly what it needed to do. And I let it go an extra, like, I don't even know, 4 days, maybe 3 days. Like it definitely saved my plants, and I didn't have to do anything except for plug them in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're right. The Blu Mat, we call it the Blu Mat Classic. It's mostly used for house plants. It's, as an individual product, it's our most popular product that we sell. And, we have a few different sales channels where you push those through. But the Blu Mat Classic is a really cool houseplant product, and it looks very similar to the Tropes Blu Mat, which we mostly talk about in weed culture, which is the valve. This one's a little different in that it's just a ceramic cone with a plastic top and a little tube coming out of that, and you put one end of the tube in a pitcher of water, and the water is siphoned up through that tube and then into the ceramic cone, and it actually bleeds through the ceramic cone into the pot. So it's actually a different mixture of clays in the tip. So the tip, the clay tip on a Trope Blu Mat versus the clay tip on a Blu Mat Classic is a different composite of materials, and the Classic is made to actually wick water out of the tube, out of the tip, whereas the Trope Blu Mat is not.
It's more porous, I'd imagine. The Classic is more porous, I would imagine. That makes sense.
Yeah, the ceramic, yeah. So the Classics are great, and we have a couple of kits we've put together, and they've been real popular. One of them is called the Vacation Watering Kit. That's a good place to start. I don't know, we might change the name. We'll see.
That's literally what I used it for, man.
Yeah, it's a Vacation Watering Kit. And it's a 5-gallon bucket with a bulkhead in it, and it's got about 25 feet of 8mm Superflex tubing, a couple of 8mm valves, and then 12 of these Classics. In addition, it comes with the 12 of these 8mm by 3mm reducing tees. So these are the tees you would use with the Tropes. And the kit itself, I'm looking at one right now. I'm in my office and I have it watering all my, my like house plants here. I've got some fig trees and banana trees and a bunch of geraniums and a hibiscus and stuff. And I got this one 5-gallon bucket. It's got a piece of 8mm tubing coming out of it. And anywhere there's a plant, I cut that tubing, I put in one of these tees, and then I connect that to the Blu Mat Classic tube. So basically we have 12 of these, the Blu Mat Classics connected to one line of 8mm tubing that's under just a slight amount of pressure, like less than half a PSI. I have the bucket just elevated a little bit, so there's a little bit of back end pressure. And what it allows me to do is have one 5-gallon bucket and then, 12 plants that are being watered by it. And, we were looking at this, these work really good. These work really good on our house plants. This would work on a simple tent grow, with a few, 1 to 12 plants in it.
Yep. That was me.
This would actually be like a really useful system. You could have a 5-gallon bucket sitting outside of the tent, and then you just run that tubing inside the tent. It would snake around the base of your plants, and you would just run one Classic up. Now, you don't get the sensitivity that the Tropes do, where it turns on and off and waters just the amount that's needed. You're just going to get a kind of steady, continuous flow. If you want it a little wetter, put 2 carrots in there, or raise the bucket up higher so there's a little bit more pressure on the back end. But, you're just going to get a consistent flow. But for veg particularly, or, for a smaller home grow, where you're not going for like absolute maximum performance and you just want something that's really easy, this is the way to go.
Yes. I should have used a 5-gallon bucket.
Yeah, well, that's what this is. Yeah, just a 5-gallon bucket. You could connect the bulkhead to like a tote or something like that too, like a 20-gallon black and yellow tote or something like that. And if you wanted a larger reservoir or something, you could put basic water soluble nutrients through the line. And yeah, it's a really easy one. It's on the website. Like I said, Vacation Watering Kit. There's another one it's on there. It's called again, these names are all up for debate. I think right now it's called
my listeners are going to write in
Gravity Irrigation XL Kit or something like that. But we have one that uses the XL Classics, which are just the larger. They put out more water, and those are the kind of kits that we would connect to rain barrels outside too.
Yeah.
So if we want to kind of distribute our rainwater out around our potted plants outdoors, or directly in the ground or in a raised bed.
Well, I loved it, man. Like I said, I should have thrown it in a 5-gallon because mine drank it right up. It really worked really well. It was perfect for going out of town because you're not, if you don't want the whole system installed in there, definitely have some Blu Mat Classics on hand. Grab the Vacation package. I had a great time using those Classics, man. Very, very cool stuff, Michael.
Yeah.
Anything else? What's on the menu before we wrap it up? Anything coming down the pipe? Any new products? Any new projects? Or are you just cruising along?
Yeah, I got a big regenerative farm project happening up in northern Colorado right now that actually I'm going to be on the phone with an engineer and a designer, another permaculture designer, as soon as we get off this call. And that's an interesting one. I usually end up dealing with like me personally, like the larger kind of engineered projects that take 6 months to a year or more sometimes to come to fruition. So yeah, they're not always there's not that same kind of immediate gratification working on those, but they are satisfying, and also just learning constantly. Like I've learned so much, over the years about water and how to administer it. So love to be able to share that with everybody.
That's what it's all about at the end of the day, administering water and the many ways of administering water.
Yeah.
Well, keep it up, man. We love Sustainable Village. So guys, go show your support. Grab that automated watering system today, or grab a vacation kit for the next time you got to go out of town. SustainableVillage.com, code Growcast now active. And thank you, Michael. We'll see you soon. We'll see you at BizCon maybe.
Yeah. We'll probably see you there.
Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, Jordan. It was great catching up with you as always. All right, take care. Bye.
All right, everyone, that's all. And we'll see you next time. Hope you enjoyed this episode. I know you did. Stay tuned. Don't touch that dial. This is Michael Box and Jordan River signing off, saying be safe and grow smarter. That's our show. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Thank you for being subscribed to Growcast. Give us a follow. Make sure you stay up to date on all of our classes and events. Go to growcastpodcast.com/classes. We are in, that's right, Tampa for the Florida Terpene class. September 9th, it's this Saturday. I'll see you there in Tampa. This is a class unlike anyone we've done before. You're not going to want to miss it. It's a terpene class, it's a tasting, and so much more. Grab your tickets now. Don't miss this one, everyone. It's amazing. And then after that, we're in Virginia for the breeder class. Find it at growcastpodcast.com/classes and use code Growcast to save some bucks. Members get 25% off, of course. So check that out. Thank you so much for tuning in. We've got Oklahoma fungi coming up on the show. We've got new guests, old guests. Lots of good stuff for you. Don't touch that dial. Hope you're doing amazing things in your garden. Be safe out there, everyone. See you next time.
Just learning constantly. Like I've learned so much, over the years about water and how to administer it.